Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Real Reds Talk. We are kicking Monday afternoon off with the content that everyone is craving right now, and that is the knowledge of our new incoming manager, Ruben Amorim. Probably not pronouncing it right, but we'll get the pronunciations done shortly. And what better way to do that than to speak to a diehard Sporting Lisbon fan and the founder of all things Alvalade.
Yeah,
Alvalade. It is going to be a few butcherings of pronunciations, trust me. But Mr. Sam Fonseca, how are we doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. If you're confused about the accent, it's because I was born in England, but my family is actually Portuguese. That's where the Sporting connection comes from. So I'm not just a random Sporting fan. So yeah, hopefully I can provide a bit of insight, probably a little bit of biased insight as well.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
No, is it as well? Am I right as well? It's not Sporting Lisbon. It's Sporting Club de Portugal. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Why,
I was gonna leave it, but you know.
No, go for it, because
I wanted to get it right.
I'd rather know. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, both ways are correct, but they're pushing more recently on the side of Sporting Club Portugal than Sporting Lisbon because they want to be like a worldwide club, if that makes sense. So it'd be like calling like Arsenal London, where it starts. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Right, cool. That's the first one out of the way, which we'll. I'm sure there's going to be many barriers as we go through it. But we've decided we're going with Sporting Sam when off the show because we've got two Sams here. So Sporting Sam is Sam Fonseca, and then Sam is regular Sam, who's always on the channel. Right. Let's do a bit of an intro then to Sporting for you, Sam. Sporting Sam? Yeah. What does it mean to you as an individual? The club,
as in the club in general. Well, it's like a religion. It's something that I think it was Totti had the saying. It was like you can change girlfriend, you can change religion, but you can never change football clubs. It's just the way it goes, and it is like a religion to people in Portugal, and it's something that I've been brought up with since I can remember. When I first started watching football, it was the Portuguese league and Sporting, and seeing all these sort of larger than life players. Because when you're younger, you sort of look at football as like superheroes, don't you? That's the way it's sort of brought up into it. And to me, it did used to be something of hurt because we just never used to win anything. Used to get so close and lose. We're sort of like the bottlers of Portugal, I guess, like Spurs are type of in England. Because we actually lost the Europa League final in 2005, and that was on our home stadium. We were 1-0 up and we lost 3-1. We've lost the league title by like 2 points multiple times. So we were just, eternal bottlers basically. And then up until 4 or 5 years ago, being a Sporting fan was actually, not in fashion, but it was a bit better to be a Sporting fan because we were winning things. Our club was on up. We were facing giants in Europe and giving them games. So yeah, it's sort of been my 25 years in this planet, a sort of mixed bag, being a Sporting fan. Right now it's good, but I'm aware that can change very quickly because football is a ever-changing sport, I suppose.
Yeah, you kind of touched on the life before Ruben Amorim there, like you said, the eternal bottlers and stuff like that. So I'll switch the question up a little bit. Obviously, United got a history with Sporting. We've took some players from you. How does that feel as a Sporting fan to see your best players sort of move on to like clubs like United? Is it bittersweet? Are you glad for them? Like, would you rather have kept them and then sort of build the team? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think bittersweet is the best way to describe it. I think it's a bit different in the case of Amorim than it was compared to Ronaldo and Nani, because Ronaldo and Nani weren't really established regulars at Sporting anyway. They were bought mostly for potential, and of course that was an upward trend for United. Marcos Rojo as well was one that was actually an integrated centre back, played pretty much every game. Didn't really have the same level of success the other two, but still I would say was a decent player for United. I think. You never want to see your best players and best managers leave, but I think it's also a good starting point where you see these players come up. And then recently, with Amorim, you've seen a lot of players leave to go on to bigger things. Nuno Mendes gone on to Paris Saint-Germain and is one of the best and talented left backs in the league. Matheus Nunes gone to your rivals Man City as well from Wolves, and a few other players have been here and there from Amorim's team. And from Sporting in general, it's bittersweet. It's good to see these players sort of progress, and there's a saying in Portugal, as long as they leave through the sort of big door, so to speak, so they don't try and force their way out or try and betray the club on the way out, then Sporting fans will be ever grateful. But there's also a feeling of once they leave the club, they're not Sporting anymore. They'll do their own thing. We'll support our own players. Does that make sense? But I think there's definitely some, there's always gratitude, and there's always nice to see our players progressing on big stages.
So there's no connection to like Bruno or anything like that. Like Sporting fans don't follow Bruno, Captain United and stuff like that.
I think a lot of them do, but I think it's a case whereas, we want to see Bruno Fernandes progress and do well, but Sporting first, at the end of the day, you gave us the 70 million that arguably won us the league. So it was sort of, Bruno gets to go on to bigger things. We went on to win the league title. I like Bruno Fernandes, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that I'm religiously like, oh, can't wait for Bruno Fernandes to do well, or do you know what I mean? It's just, he was part of the club. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he's not a Sporting player anymore. So
I like the comparison to Spurs because I feel like at the moment, the way we're playing, I don't know how deep you kind of follow Manchester United, but we're shit, basically, to call it in a, I could go around the houses about it, but we've been proper shit and, low in the table and stuff. So obviously we're hoping for like a similar impact, but what was your first initial impressions when Amorim came in? What kind of changes did you see instantly from, I don't know who the previous manager was, but before him, but was he a big significant jump?
So that season was a poor one in general. So just to give a bit of background, if you remember, 2 years before that is where our fans actually attacked our players. I'll say fans. The thugs attacked our players at the training ground, which caused Bruno Fernandes initially to rescind his contract. Rui Patricio, William Carvalho, these sort of club legends that left for free because 50 thugs went and attacked them. So we were in a club in disarray. We lost all our best players pretty much for no value at all, not including Bruno Fernandes in that, obviously, but we lost Rui Patricio, one of our best ever goalkeepers, for like 15 million. William Carvalho left for 20 million. He was a young player at the time. So we didn't really have much to deal with in that season. One that Amorim came in, we had 3 different managers, if you include, caretaker managers. We had a manager that was sacked the day after the transfer window closed, which was, just ridiculous. Why would you let a manager make all those signings and then, get rid of him day after? And then we had an unproven manager that came from the lower leagues of Liga Portugal in a guy called Silas, and then he didn't work out either because it was just too much pressure for him too quickly. And then that's when Ruben Amorim came in, and everyone will say, every Sporting fan, that they thought it was a horrendous idea at the time. He came in with 10 weeks experience at Sporting Braga, and he did do well at Braga, don't get me wrong, but 10 weeks could be considered a purple patch in football. Especially for a young manager at that time. He was one of the most expensive managers in football history. I think maybe the 4th most that we spent. I think it was 10 million that we spent on Ruben Amorim. That came from the Bruno Fernandes money as well. So we did have it to spend, but it was a massive risk at the time. And it was a last roll of the dice from our sort of president and like the sporting director, because it was, if they got that wrong, then I don't think they would be the president and the sporting director today. They probably would have lost their job or resigned. And every Sporting fan was against it, not just because of the 10 weeks experience, but because Ruben Amorim used to be a captain of Benfica. And that was a massive point. I compared it the other day to sort of like, how Jack Wilshere is getting into management. If he went to Spurs, the Spurs fans would hate it. And that's sort of what it was like, because when he used to play against Sporting, he used to obviously want us to lose and want to hurt us when we're playing on the pitch. So it was like, why, one, are you hiring a manager with so little experience? And then also someone who used to play for Benfica and was their captain and was part of their success for many years. But I'll hold my hands up. I was one of them, and I was he quickly turned it around. He promoted a lot of youth products, and there's a lot of excuse with Amorim that people say he had this youth at his disposal. Like, it wasn't like Amorim finding them, but they were under the 3 different managers before, and no one called them up. So like Nuno Mendes, Gonzalo Inacio, Eduardo Quaresma, these guys that were just in the B team and were much better than the starters we had, but no one decided to call them up until Ruben Amorim came up. So the change of philosophy was clear that he was going to try and promote the youth players up. And then that was supposed to be the plan, to sort of integrate the youth, and then sort of how similar like Arsenal's one rebuild has gone, where it's like you're just going to keep competing and see where it takes you, and hopefully compete against the big 3. And in the first season, by some miracle, we managed to win the league. No one expected it. Not even the biggest Sporting fan expected to win the league that season. So yeah, he turned it around pretty quickly, and he made a lot of Sporting fans look a bit stupid by, calling him out. So, yeah, I'll look stupid if we win a title. I'll take it, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was pretty much the general feeling at the time.
You just touched on there. He's all about promoting youth development and stuff like that. What else did he change at the club? Because obviously you've been without a title for 19 years. You described yourselves as bottlers and stuff like that. Was there something else? Did he change the attitude? Did he wholesale the backroom staff? Did he come with a different sort of what was it like he actually sort of changed at the club that changed him into title winners rather than not forever bottlers?
Yeah, so the coaching staff was a big one. He brought them from Casapia, then from Casapia to Braga, and then Braga to Sporting, and now to Manchester United. Seems to be his like right-hand man, or right-handed man, I suppose, or whatever the saying is. Just to be, the sort of eyes and ears that he can't have all the time, and also be like another room of inspiration for the team as well. One of the big things he does, and he did when he first came to Sporting, was if you're a player and you're not training well, you're not getting in with his philosophy or his ideals, you will either play with the B team or he'll sell you or he'll try and loan you out. And he did that with quite a number of players. Just top of my head, Ristovski was a right back who played right back for 3 seasons, starting right back. Amorim got rid of him as soon as he came in, pretty much. Rafael Camacho came from Liverpool, same, got rid of him instantly. Pretty much everyone who was on a sort of high wage at the time and didn't train well, wasn't in the sort of ideals that Ruben Amorim wanted, he got rid of them. And that was a ruthlessness that I look at Man United and I think, that's what you guys need in some aspects.
Yeah.
These players who are earning so much money but aren't performing, he's going to come in hopefully and get rid of those. That's what he did at Sporting, and that was a big thing. And also replacing them with youth players who are hungry to succeed. That was a big one. And obviously that is circumstance depending on what you have in your youth team's disposal. But his philosophy was like, if you train hard, no matter what age you are, if you're 17 or if you're 37, you train hard, you'll be rewarded. And that was, I think, a lot of the feeling with the youth players. That's why they succeeded so much. Like Nuno Mendes, they played because they wanted to play and because they were hungry to play. Whereas these guys who were already in the team, who were on high wages, were just there, for the money, and just for that they didn't really have the fight and the hunger. And that's what Amorim instilled in, I don't think just the players, but the coaching staff and even the fans' mindset as well. One of Amorim's big things in the press conferences leading up to the title, even when it was like, we were 1 point off, 2 points off, he was always like, I'm not focusing on the title. I'm only focusing on the next game. That's what we can do. Just focus on the next game and then take it from there. So that was sort of the philosophy he put into the club. And yeah, not just the club, but to the fans as well.
Sorry, Nick. I just wanted to add on to that.
No, go for it.
What sort of, like, his transfer policy, like, what did he look for in players that he brought in? Like, obviously, you guys have not got, like you were saying, there was financial issues with Sporting. Like, what sort of players does he look at when he's trying to bring players in? Obviously, you got Gyökeres in and Hjumlund, those kind of guys.
Yeah, so the first season when he first came in, it was a mixture of leadership. So he brought in guys like João Pereira is going to be the new manager when Amorim leaves, but he was a 34-year-old right back who'd been at the club before. He brought him in to sort of be a leader and be a sort of a second captain to these young players, especially the ones that got promoted. You had guys like Luis Neto, was a former Portuguese international as well, and Tunes, all former Portuguese internationals, sort of be leaders, not on the pitch, they didn't play as much, but to be leaders in sort of the back room and the training staff. But also, he hired a lot in league, which was something that we didn't really do a lot before then. Pedro Gonçalves came from Famalicão. So did Nuno Santos. Manuel Ugarte now plays at Man United, came from Famalicão as well. He hired a lot in league, and I think most of that might have been due to lack of finances that we had at the time. And they were sort of low risk, high reward deals, I suppose, because we weren't spending that much money on them. And a lot of the deals we made in that first season had a 50% sell-on fee to the parent club. So, for example, Pedro Gonçalves, if we sold him, 50% would have gone to Famalicão, same with Ugarte. And that was sort of one of the low risk, high reward ones as well. So even if it didn't work out, we weren't losing that much, I suppose. But now, as time goes on, it's definitely more of, buy young, sell high. Hjulmand, I'm not saying, or Gyökeres, they weren't like unknown players, but they weren't sort of top level, high end players. And they were bought for a lot of money. I think both were sort of 20 odd million, but you could say both of their value was doubled in the last season or so. So finding guys like that who, are great players, but aren't sort of top of the range, if that makes sense. No disrespect to both of them anyway, but just trying to find young players, sell them on, and try and keep the club sustainable. I think that was another one, just keeping the club sustainable with the transfer deals. But talent comes first. If, like I said, if you're not going to train, not going to play, then no matter how much he bought you for, you're going to go. Example of that, Ruben Vinagre was one of our most expensive signings, 10 million, and didn't train, and now he's on his like 4th loan out just because Amorim didn't like him, he didn't fit with the ideals. So he's not afraid to be ruthless in that aspect as well.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need some of that because our recruitment for the past 10 years, I mean, it's been okay now. Ineos have come in, but typically it's just been absolutely awful. And we're going to need certain players to come in and fit this system that Amorim wants to kind of implement at Manchester United if he wants to go with that kind of 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it. Because we have lacked a real identity under Erik ten Hag for years, there's people just question pundits, fans, everyone's been like, what is this team? What do we do? How would you describe Amorim's tactical approach? What would you expect him going to the Premier League? Do you think he can replicate what he does at Sporting?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think the one thing Amorim needs is time. And give credit to Manchester United, they gave Erik ten Hag 3 seasons. That was a lot of time for him to implement. And just it didn't work out. Sometimes it happens in football, unfortunately. But if United fans are expecting sort of an overnight thing, it's not going to happen. He needs to bring in players as well and sort of mold players to his philosophy. And it's going to be difficult coming in mid-season as well, especially 3 months into the season. Not even in January yet, so he can't even buy players from there. I would assume he would stay with a 3-back. Maybe he switches from a 3-4-3 to maybe like a 3-5-2. Put more bodies in the midfield. You do have a lot of midfielders at your disposal as well, and I do like Xerxes and Højlund as well. So I think those two could be good playing together. Also, I feel like it's going to be difficult with the wing-back situation. I look at Man United's team and I just don't see who can be in that position. I think maybe Dalot and Mazawi maybe, but Luke Shaw's never fit. Malassia's never fit. I don't know what that left side is going to be. And to be fair, I think a lot of United's problems have been injury problems. Luke Shaw is one of the best left backs I think in the world, but due to injuries, it's not there. Mason Mount is a fantastic player as well. Due to injuries, just hasn't happened. But I also think that's a philosophy thing as well and a transfer thing. Why are you buying these players? Why have you kept these players that just aren't fit most of the time? Because, they're great for 2 months, but then they're out for 4. What impact does that really make to Manchester United? But yeah, I think tactically, as long as you give Amorim time and the funds to work with, I think United will be fine. I just think the wing-back issue could be something that's difficult to translate to the United team. But I could imagine that's where Amorim will sort of dip into the transfer market and see what's available to United.
I wanted to, sorry, Sam, just before you think, on that wing-back situation, at Sporting, did he use traditional wingers sometimes in that position? So there was one, when I've looked into the tactical element of it, it was more like one would be a bit more advanced and one would be a bit more defensive. Was that a thing with that you would use kind of traditional wingers? We're looking at Garnacho, for example, extremely hard-working player. Could he use someone like that in that position, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Amorim's had a lot of success with converting the wingers into wing backs. Nuno Santos has played, I think, nearly 200 times for us, and he was a traditional winger. Yeah. Now plays at left wing back. Jenny Katama was the same, a right winger. His last 2 clubs, he played, I think, 20 games in total, and in that title winning season, he played 40 from the right wing back position. We've got a player who's just come through the youth ranks, Giovanni Kenda, 17 years old, traditional winger, now plays wing back. He's also not afraid to convert centre back into wing backs. We've seen a few guys. Mateus Reis as a natural centre back. He was put on the left wing back side as well. So if you're fast enough, I suppose, and you've got the stamina for it, I guess the centre backs could be there as well. I don't know in Man United system though if that will be the case. But Amorim's not afraid to experiment, and like I said, if the player's up for the task and up to the training, then I could see guys like Garnacho. So I've seen people put a shout of Diallo. I haven't seen much of Amad Diallo, but I think maybe he's one that you could put in that wing back position as well. I think Amorim will definitely experiment with the players he has. Garnacho is a shout as well. I don't know about your youth setup as well. I don't know if there's any promising wingers from there as well, but could also be done.
You've got Harry Amas, who I rate quite highly. He's a left back, but he's very forward thinking, very much like Luke Shaw and stuff like that. But Ten Hag was quite hestant throwing him because he said he wasn't ready for the Premier League. So he could potentially be a player that works under Ruben Amorim.
Alvaro
Fernandez.
From Benfica, of course. Yeah, he was another one, wing back. So,
but yeah, when you sort of first saw the rumours of him possibly leaving Man United, obviously there was we spoke to Ruben Amorim in the summer and he said no because for different reasons. And we decided to stick with Ten Hag. What was the general feeling among the sort of sporting fans for yourself and everybody else? Like, is it sadness, or are you like, is it excited for him to go to a big club? I know he said he wanted to stay until the end of the season, but it wasn't possible. Like, how was the general feeling?
Yeah, so what's funny, on the day that it was sort of announced that not that you were activating the clause, but when he sort of became the front runner, I asked one of my friends, a sporting fan, I was like, what are the odds, do you think? He was like, 1,000,000 to 1. Ruben Amorim's not leaving, he's staying. And then probably like 2 hours later, it was confirmed that he was your top target. So it was definitely a shock to most sporting fans, especially, those links in the summer as well. We all heard them as well. And the sort of his plane journey to West Ham to try and force Liverpool's hand. And going back to that just quickly, a lot of sporting fans felt betrayed back then because we hadn't won that second league title yet, and the season wasn't over, and he was already getting on a plane to West Ham to sort of control his future. And it was like, well, you have a job to do now, and obviously he didn't get the West Ham job anyway, or the Liverpool job, so it looked even worse for him. And he said at the time he came back, he apologized. He said, he's gotten rid of players for less. He's disciplined players for less. And, he held his hands up and apologized. And everyone was like, okay, fair enough. You're a young man. You're going to make mistakes. And then it sort of happened again. Not the same circumstance, really, because I know, no disrespect to West Ham United, but I think a lot of sporting fans saw that as a sideways step more than a progressive one. I think we can all see that Man United is a progressive step for Ruben Amorim. But I will say, I think there's still quite a feeling of, I don't know if betrayal's the right word, but hurt, I would say, probably is a better one. I would say the fan base is sort of 50-50 split, that a lot of people can see, obviously, it's a career step forward for him, which is fair enough. But a lot of people see that, he's leaving us sort of high and dry. We're going to try and go back to back in league title wins. We're in a good Champions League stage at the moment. Mm-hmm. We're unbeaten. We've got Man City coming up next as well, and then Arsenal 2 weeks after. So it's a tough run of games. And it does sort of feel like he's, maybe not abandoning ship, but in sort of a decisive season, historic season, Amorim decides to leave. So I think there is a lot of hurt. Obviously, we can all see that it's a progressive step up move for him. But I think he did actually swing a lot of people around in his press conference that he did after the game on Friday, where he was sort of explaining himself. And he did say that he did try and ask United to stay to the end of the season. They said, it's now or never. I think he did bring some fans around and win some fans there, but I still think a lot of people are going to have a sour taste in their mouth, unfortunately. But like I said, it's a great move for him. If he's the one to turn Man United around, then, it's going to look like the right decision. But no respect to you guys either. I think Man United is in a club that is in desperate need of a rebuild. And, it seems like a poison chalice at the moment for the last few managers as well. But with Ineos coming in, it could all be different. So, sort of 50-50 split, 50% saying, they're hurt, betrayed, 50% saying, he's done a lot. And I'm forever grateful for what Ruben Amorim has done for the club. He pretty much single-handedly saved the club from, massive debts and being the forever bottlers. And I'll be eternally grateful to him, no matter the circumstance, really.
You mentioned his press conferences there, and a lot's been made of him from fans who haven't seen him before, and his character as well. Chat to me a little bit about that, because I think you touched on United being a poison chalice there, which we absolutely are. We had Mourinho in it; he was done. We had Ole. We've had all these managers who at the time regarded really good, aside from Ole probably, but Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho regarded as world class, right? Mm-hmm. But you need that temperament and you need that tactical. You need everything blended together as a one. What's he like as a character, as a human? Does that come across in his press conferences?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've ever seen him throw a player under the bus when he's lost a game. It will always be his fault. He will never, ever blame, the team. He would always say, it was me, I didn't set up correctly, or I got the tactics wrong, or I picked the wrong player there. But he's never going to single-handedly say, this person was at fault, or this person was at fault. He takes a lot of responsibility. And it seems the players do love to have him around. He's someone that I think's had the moniker of friendly but fair. And he's going to be your friend if you, work hard. Like I mentioned earlier, if you stick to his philosophies, he's going to reward you. He's going to be on your side. But the second you fall out of line with him, then he's gone. And in terms of press conferences, he always says the right thing. But then, this is basically more of just, personal thing that, for example, he says the right thing about the West Ham job and doing that. And then he goes to Man United and, he's been saying all the right things. I don't know if they're true. I can't say if he asked Man United for more time. I wasn't in the room. But yeah, he definitely says the right things. And I think that's what a good thing for Man United. But I just don't know if I believe more, if that makes sense. But he definitely seems like a good manager, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, we touched on sort of transfers earlier before, and I think Ruben said he's not going to come for any Sporting players in January. But do you worry that in the summertime you might see people, like, he might come in for a couple of people, like we need a striker, Gyökeres, like we need a defensive midfielder, Hjumland, who I'm a massive fan of. Do you worry about that at all?
That's when Sporting fans really will be pissed
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
At
exactly.
the moment, they're on the like, midsection.
Yeah, if he wants to burn all bridges, that's what he'll do to get some of those players. I'm not so worried about the fact that just Man United. I think just because of how we've performed in Europe and just in the league this season, I think all of our squad leaving, like the best players, is worrying anyway. I do think a lot of the players do feel a bit upset from Amorim leaving, so I don't know if that's going to play a part in next summer or January of them going to Man United. I could see that being the case of you sort of burned them before, so they're not going to join you. And I guess it also depends on where Man United end up league position wise, if they end up in like a Champions League spot or a Europa League spot, because guys like Gyökeres have had interest from Arsenal, Barcelona, these clubs that are performing well in the Champions League spots. Does he go to Man United? I can't say. Hjulmand, I can see that fitting in at Man United, especially sort of a captain there that Amorim could bring along. But reports were that Hjulmand was the first one to go up to Amorim and sort of be like, what is this? Like, what are you doing? Like, can you, shed some light on it? So,
because didn't he ask Gyökeres and Hjulmand and these kind of players, he'd like to stay on and make sure they don't abandon ships themselves? And then he kind of went, and they're like, hold on a minute, mate, what's going on here?
Yeah, so the rumor was that he told everyone that he wanted to keep, stay one more season. We can go back to back. We can have a good run in Europe and then go, like, stay one more season. I think that was mostly to Gyökeres, who had a few offers in elsewhere and definitely a lot of interest from elsewhere. So yeah, that was something they were just like, well, you've told me to stay, and then at the first sign of a club calling, you're gone. So I think that could definitely be an impact or a factor of why players wouldn't want to join Man United. But I think football, is a short-term memory game. If the money talks and results talk, and the club talks, I don't see why any of them would want to go. I see guys like Diamonde and guys like that going as well, because they've been linked to Man United for so long. Giovanni Kenda as well, even before Amorim left, was one that was linked to United.
A young wing-back, Kenda.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. 17-year-old, yeah. So I can see him going as well. But yeah, I'm not concerned just about Man United. I think it's just every club is going to be circling us at the moment, especially now that a manager's gone. A lot of the players won't have a reason to stay because a new manager will come in. Who knows what will happen towards this season as well? Will we get the second back-to-back title, or will we fall off? Will we lose in Europe? Who knows? I think obviously that depends on the new manager. But yeah, I think I'm just worried all round, not just a Man United issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I always feel sorry for those kind of clubs, and I don't mean this in like a pitiful way or anything, but genuinely, like, because they grow these talents and they get them to a certain level, and it's like if they can keep hold of them, they would go and win. I look at even when Ten Hag came to United, all the players he had at his disposal, like De Jong and Donny and De Ligt, and they just all of them get taken, and it's like, right, you've got to rebuild from the ground again. So look at the clubs, and it's like when these big Premier League clubs come in, it's like, right, we'll take your best, everyone the best, your manager, your players, and then it's like you lot are at ground level again, aren't you? So it must be like frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. But I do think it's a lot to do with the league itself. The league didn't get a TV rights deal for like the last 2 years. We're on, I don't know if you guys know Fight TV or Triller TV, it is now. That's how you watch Portuguese league, and you can only watch like, I think maybe one game a weekend, maybe two if there's like a big game on. So it's all the league's fault as well that they're not pushing this out, because maybe it's biased for me, but I do think if they pushed it on like a TNT Sport or a Sky Sports, people would watch, and Sky would pay or TNT would pay. And then, as you know, the more money the league generates, the more money clubs generate. And this is not just a Sporting issue as well. We see it on the bigger stage with Sporting losing players for like 60, 80 million. But you see players like teams like Estoril and Arroca and teams like that, they're losing players for 2 million, because that 2 million is what keeps that club afloat. So I think, of course, it's sad doing that, but I think it could be stopped. I'm not saying, they're going to stay and not join clubs like United and Arsenal, but if the league actually did something about it and, made the league more watchable, and, a lot of that is to do with the quality of football as well and the quality of refereeing, that's a whole different sort of rabbit hole to go down. But I think it's the league's fault mainly of why that is the issue. But yeah, definitely sad. I've seen a lot of great players leave, unfortunately. But you sort of do get used to it after a while. You're like, this guy's having a good season. He's probably gone the next. I mean, we've been lucky to keep Gyökeres for 1.5 seasons, hopefully 2 if we can keep it through January as well. But it is a shame sometimes, but I think you get used to it.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions in the chat, make sure you chuck them in for Sporting Sam, as we're calling him, also Sam as well. If you've got anything extra added that you wanted to discuss whilst we're here, because obviously it's interesting times at the moment, isn't it? I feel like we're in a bit of limbo. Both, I'm sure you feel the same, Sporting Sam, but I feel like we're just kind of waiting for this to happen now. He's coming in at a period. We've got Rude where it's like 3 or 4 games, and then he's got an international break to really work with these players. But I also think like, for a coach to come in mid-season to imprint his style, I think he's going to struggle initially. I really, really do. So I like the fact that you say you're going to need patience and it's hard for United fans, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah.
To have patience in the moment, given our past.
Well, it's the same thing, and it's just like, how many managers are we going to go through before somebody gets it right? And it's just like, is this going to be another potential, like, a great manager who's done well, and we're just going to absolutely wreck him like we do with every other manager who comes to our club, apparently. So, yeah, it's an interesting period for us.
Yeah. If you was to describe him in 3 words, Ruben Amorim.
Oh, that is a great question.
And also,
leader.
The pronunciation as well. Do I say it right?
Yeah, Amorim. Yeah,
it's just fine. Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
right, cool.
I'd say leader. I think that stems from being a captain in his older days. I do think that translates well into a coach, because you know what the players want as you as a captain and as a leader. I'd say leader. Charismatic, definitely. Is no nonsense one word, or is that 2?
Yeah, you can have no nonsense if you want. Yeah,
I'll go no nonsense, because he can be ruthless at times. Like I said, if you don't fit to his ideals, he'll get you out. So yeah, those 3 I'd go for.
Yeah, we certainly need that. Yeah, we got any questions?
Couple of questions. UTFR has asked, is Rashford an Amorim type of player?
No, I don't think so. I think when you look at his wingers in the past at Sporting, you've got guys like Pedro Gonçalves, who is more of a sort of number 8 transition to winger. I could see him like Bruno Fernandes maybe doing that similar role. I know he did play for Portugal in the World Cup at sort of that winger position, right midfield position. Don't know if it's going to be sort of the same thing. Look at guys like Marcus Edwards, who is sort of skillful, small. Our wingers aren't too physical. I don't know if you could see Rashford as a striker in the system. Maybe I could see. But I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about Rashford, because I know there's been a lot of things saying like, he's not the young kid anymore. He's what, 26, 25? 27. Yeah. So it's not a case of, potential. This is where it should kick in. I don't know if Amorim's going to see that as well and just see, because is he your highest earner? One of your highest earners as well?
Yeah, 375,000, I think he's on.
So yeah, I mean, personally, I don't see it in the system. I could be wrong. Maybe as a striker, but I don't think as a winger. But yeah, I guess time will tell.
What about the midfield partnership? Just whilst we're on our current couple of players at the minute, obviously he's worked with Ugarte before, so you would kind of expect him to go with him. And we've got Kobbie Mainoo, we've got Casemiro. Profile-wise, do you think it'll be in Ugarte and Kobbie? I know it's hard to tell because he's he's not even in the door yet, but
yeah, I'd say definitely Kobbie and Ugarte. I see when Ugarte was here at Sporting, he was with a guy called Morita, who's still there, and I see a lot of similarities between Mainoo and Morita. I think progressive passing, progressive dribbling. Mainoo is fantastic, a great defender as well when he can be. Again, he's someone that I think molded to Amorim's system will probably benefit one of the most. I think Ugarte as well, obviously being in Amorim's system before, sort of knows how it works. But I can see those 2. I don't see him sticking with Casemiro. I know obviously money is a big one to get rid of him off the books because he's a bit older. Eriksen, again, I don't see if he fits into Amorim's system. I think maybe he looks at the transfer market to bring another midfielder. But I'd imagine Mainoo and Ugarte would be the 2 that he'd start with in the pivot there.
Interesting. Very interesting. What's next for Sporting? Is there a specific manager you're looking to replace Ruben Amorim with? And how do you fancy chances against Man City tomorrow? Because there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that. Probably City's biggest viewership that they've had.
Yeah, definitely. So our new manager is sort of, confirmed but not confirmed, is going to be João Pereira from the B team. So he's a B team manager. I mentioned him as one of the players that Amorim brought in his first season to be one of the leaders. Gets along with all the players, and he plays the exact same formation actually to Ruben Amorim. So I guess it's sort of a case of, if it is a broke, don't fix it. I think there's a less transition period if you get someone in who changes the formation and wants new players. So I think it's a smart appointment, a safe one. People have said maybe they wish Sporting were a little bit more ambitious in the manager market, because there is quite a few managers that are out of jobs at the moment who could be good replacements, even some that in jobs that we could use money to try and get. But I think it's a safe appointment, and João Pereira is someone who's loved among the Sporting fan base as well, so a fan favourite too. But in terms against Man City, if you asked me before this news came, I said I think we could get points off either Man City or Arsenal. I don't think either of them have been playing particularly well recently. Yeah. I think we've been playing very good football. I don't know where the minds of the players are at or Amorim's at. Of course, it's a great audition for Amorim. If he goes and beats Man City, then liked by Man United fans. But I don't know if Sporting players will see it that way almost as well. Do you know what I mean? They might have that in the back of their mind, like, oh, he's going to try and do this to be good to his new fans or whatever. But the way form has gone, I do think we can get a point off them. We're not the same Sporting that faced them 2 years ago. We lost 5-0. I think we're more defensively set up better than we were. Obviously Gyökeres is there, almost a guaranteed goal a game. So I think of course it's going to be tough, but I back the boys to do well. I'll never bet against them. So you know what, I'll say maybe a draw. I'll be happy with the draw. I think we could take points off them.
Yeah, I think Josh Rowan there in City have a lot of injury problems as well. Yeah, they lost to Brentford, not Brentford, bloody Bournemouth, wasn't it? Arsenal losing a bit of a mad weekend. We've got Jim Watkins saying, if you are Amorim, what would be the first thing you would identify and change in our club on arrival?
That is a good question. I think he just has to be ruthless with the squad. I think he knows what players are going to fit to his ideals. And if you see guys like Casemiro in there who's not going to be there, then try and offload him or make him train with the reserves or something. I feel like he has to be ruthless. And I think Erik ten Hag was ruthless in some cases. You can argue Ronaldo, he was ruthless, and then in other circumstances wasn't. So I think no more of this sort of 50-50 management. You've just got to make a decision and stand by it and then see how it goes. I think integrating youth as well would be a good one. If he sees players that are in United's youth team that can be progressed and can play a part, then he will do that and he should do that. But I think the main thing has got to be, okay, who are the players you're going to use? Okay, put them in the team. Okay, the players you're not going to use, you need to figure out what's going to happen. And I mentioned it earlier, I don't know what he's going to find situations with like Luke Shaw and Mason Mount, who are currently always injury prone. So I don't know if that's something that he's going to look at and say, these guys are taking up a lot of wages, they don't play that much, I'm going to try and replace them. But yeah, I think he's got to be ruthless. So the first thing got to be and decide what squad he wants to build.
That's a good place to end it. Sam, do you want to plug where people can find you, socials, YouTube, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so we host a sporting podcast in English at All Things Alvalade on Twitter and all podcast platforms as well. If you want to just listen to me, I've got my own YouTube channel, Sam Fonseca, the same as the at on Twitter as well. But yeah, so follow those two, and thank you guys for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the insight, man. It's been really, really good. I'd rather hear it from a fan who watches them week in, week out, and knows the specifics. Sorry, and you've literally, with everything, you've given a very good, detailed answer. So I feel like my brain's packed now, full of Amorim knowledge. I'm ready for him to come in and see if he hits the ground running or not. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I wouldn't take someone like a Hjumland or someone like a Gyökeres. So if it does happen, it's just a pre-apologies that I throw in there. But yeah, I do like Gyökeres as a striker. I think he'll be phenomenal.
I've been talking about Hjumland for about a year and a half. So yeah, if he came to, I would be excited. But yeah, apologies again if it does end up there.
I mean, they both got release clauses, quite high ones. I think Gyökeres is 100 million euros and Hjumland is 80. So if you pay that, I can't stop you. But at the end of the day, is what it is.
Something United aren't shy of, I suppose. So yeah, but
exactly.
thank you for coming on, Sporting Sam. Let's see what's in store for the future of Ruben Amorim. Thank you for watching, guys. Leave a like on the video for us, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for Sam for being co-host also as well.
Peace, everybody.
Peace in a bit.